Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or this podcast. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by any organization unless explicitly stated.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. I'm Lisa Chafee.
Not Michael Nash.
And our normal co-host Josh is unable to join us tonight, but on the phone with us is our 51st Secretary of State, Frank LaRose. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing well, Lisa and Michael. Looking forward to the conversation, and thanks for what you guys do, helping to keep Ohioans informed. We run elections here at the Secretary of State's office, but if Ohioans aren't well informed, nothing else really works. And so thank you for what you do.
And that is very true. And that's a couple of things we wanted to talk to you about is what's going on with the elections in Ohio. Starting with recently, I know Ohio legislature passed legislation requiring that all mail-in ballots be in on election day. Obviously, there's an exception for military. But now the United Supreme Court has said that late arriving ballots can still count. What are your thoughts on that, and what can we do?
Yeah, so let me clarify this. This is something where Ohio has joined the vast majority of other states, 35 other states, I believe, in the country, that simply say ballots have to be in by election day. It's easy to remember. And listen, it's better for voters, too, because previously there was always a level of confusion about, is it 5 days? Is it 7? Is it 10? Does it need a postmark? Does it not? What is it? This is intuitive and it's easy to understand. And so let me be 100% clear. Ohio's law stands. Nothing that the Supreme Court did changes that. What the Ohio Supreme Court said is that the U.S. Supreme Court, rather, what the U.S. Supreme Court said is it is up to the states to determine this. The question in front of the U.S. Supreme Court was, should we require every state to pass that same standard that Ohio did? Should every state be required to have their ballots in by election day? And what the court said is, we're not going to require all 50 states to do that. It's up to each state. And so let me be 100% clear about this. In Ohio, the law that our state legislature passed and that our governor signed many months ago, the law that was in place for our May primary stands. And of course, ballots must be in by election day, with the exception of our overseas and military personnel.
Well, what happens when the Postal Service drops the ball? And let's say, theoretically, election day is, November 3rd? Let's say I were to mail in my ballot October 15th, and it doesn't arrive until after Election Day because the post office has screwed up. Well, what happens then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is, first of all, why it's important not to procrastinate. The Postal Service deals with millions of pieces of mail every month. And so, of course, there's going to be some level of error that occurs. We try, I'm sure the Postal Service tries to avoid that. But it's important for you to not procrastinate, to mail your ballot as early as possible. This is why we remind people, if you want to request your absentee ballot now, you can do so, and you'll be one of the first to get it. You can mail it back in mid-October when the ballot comes to you. You can go on our website at voteohio.gov and track your ballot so you know when it's been received by the Board of Elections. That's an important feature that a lot of people don't realize. You can track your ballot just like you track a package you order online. Again, voteohio.gov/track. And the other thing is, if you want to, you can return your absentee ballot in person. You can't have somebody else do it unless you're a disabled Ohioan, and then there's a special exception for you. but you have to return your own ballot. You can return it to the County Board of Elections in person at the drop box if you want to do that. And here's the safeguard that exists. Say that election day is coming up, you go to my website and you realize that your absentee ballot that you mailed maybe days ago, weeks ago, has not been received. You can still go and cast what's called a provisional ballot. This is an important safeguard, and it's a tool that makes sure that nobody's left out of the process. Again, we've thought of everything here. If you cast a provisional ballot, it won't count on election night, but as you know, that's the unofficial result on election night. The official result, the one that really counts, is the one that's certified a few weeks later. And so if you cast a provisional ballot, they put it aside, and then they make sure that your absentee ballot didn't come in. As long as they can verify that your absentee ballot didn't come in, then they will count your provisional ballot. And so there's a safeguard for that. Again, just be an informed voter, cast your ballot early. It should arrive at the Board of Elections. 99% of them do. If yours doesn't, you'll know about it by going to our website, voteohio.gov/track.
And not only that, but if I'm not mistaken, so now it's required you have to have an ID to vote.
Of
well,
course.
It's been that way, right?
Yeah, and Ohio's required that for the last several years. And here's the great thing. You know, the liberal, Chicken Little, sky is falling crowd, they said, well, that's going to suppress the vote. The opposite. We've seen record turnout in Ohio since we put in place a photo ID requirement. So, yeah, when you vote in person, either early or on election day, you've got to show your photo ID.
Well, and our illustrious Governor DeWine has vetoed House Bill 472, as you know, which would have required IDs for mail-in ballots. Now, I'm hoping our legislature will override that veto. But what I want people to understand is you and the legislature have made it easier for people to get the documentation that they need for free in order to do that mail-in ballot. So explain that a little bit.
Yeah, well, and so of course, you've got to get some. If you don't have an ID, you've got to get some documentation together to get that. You need a birth certificate and some other stuff, perhaps. But you can get an ID for free. So there's no question about I can't afford it or whatever else. Let's be honest. The vast majority of us need to have an ID to function in modern society. You need it to board an airplane, to buy a six-pack of beer, or whatever else you're doing. Of course, you need it to vote. And so photo ID is an important safeguard. Now, on the bill that the governor vetoed, here's maybe a different way to look at it. I was encouraging the governor to sign it. I was hoping he would. I encouraged the legislature to pass this, but there were several things that were left out of that bill that should have been included. And so maybe when the legislature works on this again, they can include all of the things that we recommended and pass a better bill. And whether it's Governor DeWine or, God willing, hopefully Governor Ramaswamy, we can get a photo ID in place that includes absentee ballots. Now, again, details matter in this kind of thing. And there were a couple things missing from that legislation. One of them is they didn't provide the funding to actually create this mechanism, which you got to fund something like this. It's not free to build a system, but you also have to put in the back-end verification. If you send me a copy of your photo ID, I need to, at the County Board of Elections, be able to look up your photo ID in the BMV database and make sure, hey, this is Lisa. I see her face on this photocopy. I see her face on the record that the Ohio BMV has. That mechanism was not included in this bill. That's an important part of this. And so, again, there are a couple things that I suggested that the legislature do that just for whatever reason didn't make it in the final cut of this bill. And so my hope is, yeah, the governor didn't sign this. I was hoping he would, but maybe we can make it even better next time.
Well, maybe they can use some of that $1.7 billion that were collected above projections in tax money.
And I would suggest that maybe we keep working on cutting taxes. And again,
Agreed.
Our next governor, Vivek Ramaswamy, wants to completely eliminate income tax in Ohio. This would make us more competitive. You may have seen big news today that Ohio, by CNBC, was ranked the #1 state in the country for starting a business. That's great. The way we stay there is by doing things like eliminating crazy regulations that make it impossible to build things, by eliminating some of this nanny state nonsense that you see, particularly in big liberal cities, but also by eliminating our state income tax.
Yep, that would be very nice. I'd like to be able to keep a lot of the money that I work really hard to get.
And property tax. Property tax is a big ticket item as well. That's going to be huge.
Yeah, well, and I would argue that, again, you want to be smart about this. We need to reduce and cap the rate of increase in property tax. I don't think, personally, that we want to eliminate. We don't want to eliminate property tax. Again, I recognize they're too high. They're too high for me, you, and everybody listening. But if you and I think, agree, ideas like defund the police are crazy ideas. Well, if you eliminate property tax, you don't have the mechanism to fund your local police, your township police, your county sheriff, and that kind of thing.
Right.
And so what we need to do is eliminate, and this is what Viveka said, I don't speak for him, we need to eliminate the income tax, and we need to constrain and control property tax.
Right.
Well, and I think a lot of what's in the property tax that's got people upset are school levies. But of course, a lot of those people are voting for those levies. But it's a vicious circle almost, because we need to fix the school funding problem and make sure that schools don't need to keep coming to the public and asking for levies, but we also need to make sure that police and fire are taken care of, because God forbid your house catches on fire and, well, guess what? We don't have enough fire department firefighters because we don't have enough tax money.
Firefighters, paramedics, all the other services they provide, those sort of things. Yeah.
Well, the people that plow our snow, for that matter, right? I mean, you want to live in a community that has basic government services. That at the local level is funded by property taxes. Here's the other thing, and this is something we as conservatives need to think about. Local control matters. You do not want people in Columbus controlling your township, your village, your city. You don't want people in Columbus controlling your school district. And if you don't have local funding, you don't have local control. If you eliminate property taxes entirely, really the only thing that can replace that is some sort of a increase in state sales tax, or God forbid, this would be a terrible thing, increase in state income taxes. And what that means is somebody in Columbus is now in charge of divvying out how much money your township gets, how much money your county gets, your school board gets. That's a bad idea. We believe in local control.
Right.
And that's what property taxation gives us. And by the way, if you're concerned about not only school levies, but all these other local tax levies, we've got some ideas. And let's talk about the auditor's race when you get a chance and how much that can have an impact.
Well, let's talk about that, because you are finishing up your second term as Secretary of State. In addition to still serving in the reserves, you served in the military, in the Army, Green Berets, Special Forces. Thank you for your service on that, by the way.
Hoorah.
As a matter of fact, you just were in Europe.
I love I love being able to do it. And listen, it's a blessing that at 47 years old, I can still pass the PT test. I can still serve as a Green Beret on a Special Forces team. And by the way, I don't know why people think this. Sometimes people think I'm an officer. I am not. I'm an enlisted man. I'm a sergeant first class, 18 Charlie, which means Special Forces engineer sergeant. And I love doing it. And those 6 weeks I spent on deployment, I'll say this, were a quick 6 weeks for me. I was having a lot of fun. They were a long 6 weeks for my wife and my little girls, and so they're the ones that sacrifice way more than I do.
Well, I know we did miss you. In the political world here, we did miss you, and we were praying for you while you were gone. So tell us about your future and your campaigning to be the next auditor.
Yep.
Why choose that?
I accepted this call to duty because I really connect with the mission of the auditor's office. Again, maybe it's my Army background. I think in terms of missions, what are we here for? What are we doing? If we're going to spend our time doing something, it ought to be something worthwhile. And what I realized early on is that the auditor's office has two main missions: catching crooks that are stealing tax dollars. And we're talking about fraud, Medicaid fraud, other fraud, local bureaucrats or local officials that are putting their hands in the cookie jar. Those people belong in jail, and it's the state auditor's job to make sure that that's exactly where they end up. This happens when the state auditor conducts a financial audit. They look at the dollars, they look at the spreadsheets, they find out if there's something missing. those investigations generally start as a result of those financial audits. But the other part of the auditor's office, and the part that I'm probably most excited about, is that it's the one place in state government that focuses on government efficiency. So think of it like this. It's ODOGE. It's Ohio Department of Government Efficiency. So let's go to this very real example that impacts all of our lives. Tax levies, school tax levies, local tax levies. What we need to be looking at is how efficiently are these dollars being spent? The state auditor has the authority not only to come in and do a financial audit, that's a given, and they do it every year. They come in and look at the books. They can also come in and do a thing called a performance audit. What's that? It's an efficiency study, top to bottom, policies and procedures, use of real estate and electricity and technology, how many staff they have, what are they accomplishing for the hours that they work. And this is not a newsflash. Government is not as efficient as the private sector because it lacks the profit motive. But here's where the accountability really comes into play. When the state auditor comes in and does these efficiency studies and looks at how efficiently is your school board functioning, it can't just go sit on a shelf as another 3-ring binder. What needs to happen then is the public needs to be made aware, hey, listen, your school board or your school district was found to be operating inefficiently. You should really think about that before you send them more of your money. Because instead of just asking for more of your money, what government ought to be doing is finding ways to do more with less. And I've got a lot of creative ideas. Let me give you an example that directly relates to school districts. I grew up in Copley Township, graduated from Copley High School. This is up near Summit County, just sort of west of Akron. And in my school district, like many other school districts, there's another school district just a couple miles to the north. There's another school district just a couple miles to the south. Each one of them has their own bus garage. Each one of them has their own maintenance operation. Each one of them has their own administrative office with legal staff and accountants. Each one has their own food service operation. Imagine this. Imagine if 3 or 4 school districts could share one bus garage instead of each one having its own fuel pumps and mechanics and routing software and spare buses. Imagine if you could have the economies of scale. You can keep your local control. You can keep your local identity, your Friday night football rivalries, all that stuff that we love, but you can have the economies of scale of shared services. Just look at the numbers. Ohio, a state of 12 million people, has over 600 school districts. The state of Florida is twice our population, and they have around 200 school districts. We have too many school districts in Ohio, but no politician wants to suggest that you consolidate or combine these schools because people have their identity and their local pride tied up in that. Okay, so we can keep that identity and local pride, but we can save money by sharing services, sharing a bus garage, sharing a food service operation where food is prepared at a central commissary and then shipped out at 5 a.m. to all the different school buildings, sharing administrative functions, legal staff. This can be done. But again, I think the state auditor's office is a good platform, a good vehicle to bring about some of these real changes that could cause more efficiency.
Well, fixing what's wrong in our schools has been my passion for several years now, and I love everything you just said. I've actually had many conversations with some friends that we should combine the school districts. I mean, it's ridiculous. Franklin County is huge, but you've got Dublin, Hilliard, Worthington, all these different school districts. And the city of Columbus, whose school district is under investigation right now for mismanagement of funds, their superintendent, or they're sitting on over $200 million in cash. Hilliard's sitting on $100 million in cash. Let's combine the superintendents. How about we just have one superintendent, one legal department, one curriculum department? That would be great for consistency and continuity across the board, so that, if I move from Hilliard to Dublin, I know my kid's going to be on the same path. So I'm very excited for you to get into office and hopefully make these ideas come to fruition. But Mike, you had a question.
Well, and let's save money on the administrative stuff, but there are some areas where we may want to spend more. Where classroom instruction, rigor, STEM education, actually preparing our students to compete and succeed. I got a funny story. I took my 3 daughters to a speech that Vivek Ramaswamy did a couple months ago, and we were there. You wonder, a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old, if they're paying attention. Afterwards, we were backstage talking to Vivek, and I said, hey, what'd you think? And my daughter said, Daddy, I'm not going to vote for him. And I was shocked. I was, why? If Vivek's standing right here. Why aren't you going to vote for him? And she said, my 13-year-old, she said, Daddy, he's going to make school really hard. Well, you know what?
Yeah, there you go.
And I turned to Vivek and I said, hey, good news. She's got another 6 years before she can be a registered voter. And so, you know what? We need to make school rigorous and challenging. And sometimes that means investing in classroom education, but there are certainly areas where we can save money as well.
Exactly.
So everybody can compete on the world stage, right?
Amen.
So I wanted to pick your brain because there's so much going on in the world of politics. And right now, the Democrats nationally seem to kind of be imploding a little bit, in particular with the state of Maine and Graham Plattner. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, this is where campaigns, candidate vetting, the work that parties do when they evaluate candidates and consider endorsements, this stuff matters. And, this guy, I guess, gave a good speech and got people fired up. But did people look into this guy's background? He's a complete creep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Nazi tattoos and history of mistreating women. I mean, this stuff matters. Just the good news about a guy like me. Like, I've had a security clearance since I was 21 years old. I've been publicly vetted. Whatever there is to know about me is known. Evidently, they didn't do that kind of vetting when it came to this Plattner character. But listen, it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. If the Democrats want to go out and hitch their wagon to a cretin like that, then they're going to get exactly what's coming to them.
Yes, Senator John Kennedy was on Fox News. I believe it was last night. He's on there a lot. And one of the things that he said was anybody that voted for Plattner has the IQ of a toaster.
I love Kennedy. I'll tell you what, he's hilarious. No, that's true. Or they just fell for the rhetoric. Again, there are plenty of people that can give a good speech, and you don't want to put them in charge of anything, right?
Yeah.
Just because this guy's a fiery orator doesn't mean that he's going to be a good United States senator. Far from it. And again, this is the good news, too. A campaign is a crucible. And usually, over the months and months and months of a campaign, if somebody's got some shady stuff in their background, it comes out. People find out about it. You can't keep that stuff secret. And thank God the people of Maine found out about this guy. And listen, is Susan Collins as conservative as I want her to be? No, gosh, no. But more often than not, 85, 90% of the time, she votes with the good guys. So, if that's the best we can get, we'll take it. It's the idea of pragmatism and a big tent party. And again, listen, a state like Maine is probably not going to elect a far-right conservative, rock-ribbed conservative Republican. And so I hope they reelect Susan Collins.
Yes. We can't afford to lose any seats in the Senate. And it's very disheartening that the Democrats hate President Trump so much. They would rather have had someone like Plattner or they were touting Eric Swalwell, who also, as you know, has been accused of some horrific things. I just really wish our country could get back to some common sense, get back to how we were on 9/12 and that unity. We got a lot of work to do. But
listen, PDS is real.
Oh,
PDS
my gosh,
is
it
real.
is.
There are
It is real.
a lot of people out there, and listen, is the president always as he's not a choir boy. We get that. That's not the job he was hired for, but he is an effective executive. He knows how to get things done. And whether the left likes it or not, for the next several years, he's our president. And when he succeeds, America succeeds, and we need to get behind him.
Exactly. Well, that's the saddest thing. We just had the World Cup, and the Democrats were rooting against the United States team simply because of President Trump. I mean, come on.
That's disgusting. There's a word for that. That's disgusting.
It is.
As we celebrate America's 250th birthday, let's recommit ourselves to the idea that America is worth fighting for, with all of its imperfections, like any human endeavor. We haven't ever been perfect. The last perfect one was hung on a cross 2,000 years ago.
Amen.
So humans are not going to be perfect, but America is worth fighting for. And our generation needs to take up the mantle of launching into our next 250 years of greatness.
Agreed. So one other topic I wanted to pick your brain about with your vast experience in the military, and we're back at it again with Iran. They didn't uphold their end of the peace treaty. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, this is a challenging thing. They've got leverage here with the Strait of Hormuz situation. That's unfortunate. The president's assessment is correct. They are not trustworthy people. I hesitate to use the word crazy, but they're maniacal ideologues. They wish death to America and they wish death to Israel. And so how do you negotiate with people like that? Listen, there's no better negotiator in the world than our president. He's proven throughout his life. He knows how to drive home a bargain and get a deal. But you can't deal with people that are thoroughly irrational. Iran has been a threat to our national security for a long time. I can tell you that when I served in Iraq, the people that we were often up against were backed by, and in some cases, members of the IRGC, the Iranian military and their expeditionary forces. This country cannot, Iran, be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. I mean, that's a red line that cannot be crossed because they would use it. We need to bring this to a resolution and bring it to a resolution quickly. The president has knowledge that I don't have about the situation on the ground, so I'm not going to pass judgment without full information. But this needs to get resolved. We need to get oil flowing and ships moving and all of those things, but we cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. That's a hard red line that cannot be crossed.
And one of the things that people don't realize is that Iran has no incentive to have a peace treaty with us, because as long as they have the appearance that they are fighting the big bad wolf, that they are the victim, they are winning, in their opinion.
Yeah. The great Satan is what they call us. And here's the thing: our beef is not with the Iranian people.
Right.
The Persian culture and society has produced a lot of great things over the years. The problem is they're governed by complete lunatics right now. And I get it that it's very hard for the Iranian people to stand up and take them on because they lack this thing called the Second Amendment. What do you know, right?
Yeah,
they don't
exactly.
have the ability to they don't have the ability to defend themselves, and they have been subjugated and victimized by this regime for 40 years. But over time, courageous Iranians need to stand up and say, we're not going to live this way. We're not going to be governed this way. And the sooner that can happen, the better.
Agreed.
Indeed.
So we're about out of time. I want to give you the opportunity. If anybody would like to help you with your campaign, be it boots on the ground or money, where can they connect with you?
It's at franklarose.com, franklarose.com, all the different socials as well at Frank LaRose. Listen, the race for auditor, I get it. It's not one you think about on a daily basis. You're probably thinking about the governor's race, U.S. Senate race, vitally important that Vivek and John win those. You may be thinking about a congressional race. If you are concerned about fraud and abuse and inefficiency in government, you should care about the auditor's race. If you chip in a couple bucks, it would help. If you're willing to come help knock on doors with me or whatever else, franklarose.com. I would be honored. And here's the most valuable contribution you can give me. Keep me in your prayers. We got a lot of work to do over the next 119 days to win this for the good guys. I'm out there working every day, and I hope you'll help me.
And on September 26th, you will be speaking at our Ohio Freedom Rally in Plain City. So I'm very excited about that.
Anytime I can give a speech from the bed of a hay wagon, I'm in.
I love it.
There you go.
I love it. You were there for our first one and the second one. It was a lot of fun. It's going to be just as fun this year. And you always give such wonderful speeches. You don't put people to sleep, that's for sure.
It's from the heart. I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. we are leaving it better than we found it. And in this race for state auditor, it's all about fighting fraud and making government more efficient. I think those are two worthwhile objectives, and I'm so excited about it.
Us too. Well,
very much.
Secretary of State Frank LaRose, we greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Thank you.
Follow us, Straight Shot
Lisa
Politics.
and Michael, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, sir. And follow us on Facebook, on YouTube, Straight Shot Politics. Click it for the likes and subscribe so we can get our message out there to more people. This has been Straight Shot Politics.